Did all new, all different Marvel ruin what we got in the current MCU? Was this a setup? Well, I did like some mental following the breadcrumbs a little bit and talking to a couple of people who are, from various different, beliefs and, backgrounds and all this other stuff to see, like, I'm not crazy, right? But no, I think a lot of people are in like an agreement that there was a bit of a setup here. It's probably why we're in the mess that we are with the MCU in terms of certain characters. But before I continue on, please leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. But follow me in the links in the description below and like this video. Liking the video is free 95. It is free 95. So, if you aren't familiar, back in 2014 to 2015, there was a new, I want to say like a reboot of sorts. But you know, one of those kind of things with, every few years, comics tend to have like a good, a new clean slate kind of thing to start fresh with, like, to do new number ones for certain characters and everything like that. Back then, and this might sound familiar, but back then, we got introduced to a lot of new characters, like Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. There was the introduction of Jane Foster's Thor. There was Sam Wilson taking over the mantle of Captain America. And there was, Carol Danvers doing a complete kind of makeover in terms of going from Warbird into Captain Marvel with a whole new outfit and a whole new attitude. So yeah, even the She-Hulk went from like sassy, breaking the fourth wall supermodel into just another Hulk rage monster, which wasn't fun at all. So, looking at what we've been getting with the MCU in the past 7 years, I guess, you see and you're starting to notice, wonder why that they've been propping up these particular characters for some reason. And you can't help, it's always been a rumor, but I think the rumors has some bit of legitimacy that Kevin Feige has strong hold over Marvel Comics and going, how like that whole people's lines like, oh, Sam Wilson was Captain Marvel in the Captain America in the comics. Yeah, but it was during the time when those all new, all different Marvel was not working out for the most part for a good chunk of comics at the time. And clearly, somebody, maybe not Kevin Feige, but somebody must have reached out. Like I said, it's not like a concrete thing, but there's like a scent in the air where smoke is fire. You know what I mean? It's too palpable at this point to kind of hand wave it over. Where somebody in Marvel Studios or Disney got a hold of whoever's running like the Marvel Comics company. It's like, hey, we have a plan for Kamala Khan down the line. We got a plan for Sam Wilson, Captain America. Figure out a way to like push that into your comics. Because, 3-4 years from now, we are setting them up here for this particular moment. Now, mind you, it's way before the whole pandemic situation. So they kind of screwed a lot of things up for everybody. But aside from that, you can't help but wonder why. Yeah, I mean, it's not saying like you can't introduce new characters. That's perfectly fine. I like Kamala Khan before they trying to retroactively change her from Inhuman to mutant. And I know the original creator wanted to do the mutants first, but they didn't have the rights. But even like I said plenty of times, that should have been completely separate from whatever is going on with the movies or TV shows from what happens in the comics. If the lady really wanted to make her a mutant, and been done with it. But now the fact that they can't unring that belt because she's been an Inhuman for such a long time, now she's turned into an Inhuman mutant hybrid, which is so dumb. Now you can, from that particular point, it's hard for me to not say there's too much overlap going on between what's going on with the comics and what's going on with the movie side of things or TV show or whatever, where like there's no separation of state going on, where the movies are doing their own thing but the comics got doing their own thing. They might have little moments here and there that has some reference going on with whatever's going on with the movie side of things, like having Black Panther having to look like Chadwick Boseman, just kind of out of reverence for that actor. That's perfectly fine. Or having Tony Stark looking like Robert Downey Jr. in the comics, perfectly fine. But when you start like completely telling what the comics, if the movies are starting to influence the comics instead of the other way around, there's a problem. Where, like I said, it's not a problem that it in of itself for Sam Wilson taking up the mantle of Captain America, but you don't back it up with any substance. It leads to problems because Sam Wilson's Captain America comics didn't sell all that good, and the runs don't last very long. Typically, quite a few of them got canceled, at least from my memory. Nobody stayed on long enough to care. It's pretty much just trying to spotlight, trying to incept young readers' brains to get them to accept years down the line, like you're trying to trick them into liking this character without, like I said, the movies are influenced the comics instead of the other way around. You don't automatically have, because Sam Wilson, unlike Steve Rogers, haven't been into the comic for X amount of years, because you get writers like, you need to have some kind of writers like Tom King or I'm blanking on other people's names right now, but or like Tom King is always the top of mind when it comes to like comic book writers, but you don't have like competent writers actually have some kind of story they want to tell with some of these new characters. Some worked out, but some didn't. I didn't care for the whole Jane Foster trying to do a secret identity crap. Some people like Jane Foster's Thor, but the whole cancer thing, I'm not saying there wasn't a merit to that as a good like story beat, where she has to change into a Thor moniker in order to cure temporarily her cancer. Well, but at the same time, it eroded any treatment that was being done at the same time. So every time she reverts back, it's like she's starting from zero again. So there's something to it. Not saying there isn't, but I didn't agree with the whole secret identity thing. And my biggest grievance is how they have to retroactively push away the old guard instead of just allowing the Miles Morales stuff. I think Miles Morales handled better, where it's like, I hate to say the word sidekick or the partners. They could have just been partners. Riri Williams is another one. Like they could have just been partners to the old guard, so that way they can slowly but surely, get people used to them. So when they step into their own, with great writing, people will be a little bit more receptive. So when the movies take notice instead of just inserting themselves into the company, it's like, oh snap, this Kamala Khan story seems legit. Let's adapt that into our TV show. But the old guard is then relegated to like Steve Rogers became like a, old man, or even worse, turn him into Hydrocap in the dumbest storyline and still the most hated storyline of all time. With the whole Hydrocap BS. Then we got Carol Danvers, who ends up like doing like a whole Civil War II thing, because the whole thing with Inhumans, because they was forcing Inhumans into a spot where X-Men belonged to, but they couldn't utilize X-Men for quite a long time. It's really stupid. I'm not going to get into that. But then turn her into like a bonehead who ends up getting into a big fight with Tony, and the whole entire thing was more mishandled than the first Civil War comic. And that's saying a lot. And you really ruin her character, because now she turned, I won't say turned to like an ultra feminist, but there was some kind of Brie Larson's influence. They really tried to, project in her and try to make her the face of Marvel, and really lean too hard into it instead of just letting it happen naturally, let her be some level of charm to her, let us warm up to her. But no, it's like, no, she's a badass because we say she's a badass, and you gotta buy it. You're selling it. And it's like, the whole thing is just like, turn a lot of people off with this character, and she wasn't being received the way that she probably should. But it just come across kind of eye rolly. Oh, you cut your hair, and you now doesn't have the thigh high boots, and now you got, complete coverings, and you don't take no BS from from nobody, and just like, oh, I put on pants, so you better buy what I'm selling because I got a brand new hairstyle and attitude, and it's come across cringy, kind of lame. Not saying it could not work, but like I said, you got to have the writing to back it up, and the writing has been terrible with this character. Then you got the whole bringing in Jane Foster's Thor, but then making Thor unworthy and turning him to a sad sack. I remember that it was like a terrible time trying to read Thor when he's becoming like a complete just miserable oaf that I couldn't bring myself to continue on reading. I completely turned off of Thor for a good period of time until eventually he got a hammer again. We became the whole god of hammers, and he starts getting like a dwarf to allow him to summon more hammers. That was a slight turn. Even still, I wasn't reading all that much until he actually got his own hammer back again. The whole entire moment was dumb. Then we got, Carol Danvers killing off Tony Stark. So now we, forcing Riri Williams into this spot instead of like, no, you haven't earned that spot. You're trying to make us like this character, but you forcing it on us. And when you're forcing people into trying to liking something without giving us any rhyme or reason besides like, hey, this is carrot cake. This is carrot cake. This is carrot cake. You gotta like carrot cake. And it's like, no. Yeah. Instead of like, here, I baked this cake. Here, try a piece. I was like, oh, what is it? Oh, it's carrot cake. I made it fresh. Got its cool ingredients. Worked on. I been working on making sure it's perfected. In a couple of classes, I want you to try it out and see if it's any good. And it's like, carrot cake is actually pretty solid. I'd love to have more of this. And kind of when you know the person worked very hard and you ask them to have a taste, you ease them into it, and then they will want more of your carrot cake. Instead of like, carrot cake, you gotta like carrot cake. And it's like, no, I don't want to. Stop pushing that on me. Leave me alone. Stop talking about your stupid carrot cake. But it's like, if you don't like carrot, you don't eat this carrot cake, then you're a carrot phobe. Like, you're a carrotist. You're vegetalist. And then it'll completely turn people off. And it's like, oh my God. And it's like, most of these characters wasn't eased into. Not saying that Sam Wilson can't be Captain America. Not saying Riri Williams can't someday, replace Iron Man. But you didn't work for it. And you gotta have some common people. Instead of they was using these characters as like props to set up future stuff. So that's why the writing at that time sucked so bad. And because of that, now we got all these like TV shows and movies that didn't work out so well, especially, Brave New World. That suffered immensely because the TV show didn't do all that well, because like you're really leaning into this whole race thing with this character, and it's like, and you got crazy moments where it's like, you gotta do better, Senator. And it's like, defending these terrorists in this show, and it's like, they're people too, and they just need to be heard, and all this. The entire thing kind of fell apart because nothing happened naturally, and you're trying to force us to like certain characters where it's like, why should we? Besides the fact that, they're a person of diverse this or that, so you just have to like it because you're a good person, right? If you're not liking these people, you're not a good person. You must be, you must hate, black people. And I was like, it has nothing to do with it. I was like, why do we need to accept Sam Wilson as Captain America besides the fact that he, was pals with him? I was like, show us why he earned that title and why we should like him. Just like the same way that we have to, let's be honest, before the first Captain America movie, Captain America, like Tony Stark, it was relegated to like B-list characters. We had most comic book fans, they respected the characters, but they didn't really care for the characters because the writing wasn't there. But in the movies, because of competent writing, showed us something that what we like, what Steve is all about. Like the Earthstein character who made the super soldier serum. It's like, you're a good man. It's not the serum that makes you great, because you are already great. And we see that in action when he jumped on that dummy grenade where he, chased after the guy who shot Earthstein. He, he helped bring down Hydra by taking down S.H.I.E.L.D. at the same time, because the whole holding a gun to everybody said was wrong. That's not safety. And he had to go up against his own government because he knew that was the right thing to do, because it is pretty much corrupted. So it's just like, we don't get those kind of moments with Sam. It was just like he was friends with him. He's black and he's got struggles to hold this, representation of America who wasn't good to black people for most of history. So it's like, it's just like, okay, I'm not saying you can't tell that story, but it's just like, you did not do it in the right way at all. It come across so preachy, and it turned people off. And I can't blame them for being turned off by that stuff, because it's like very hand wavy, like it's your problem, you was the problem attitude. It's like with the whole Black Widow movie. It's like, You think it's a coincidence that they lean very hard into a villain that looks suspiciously like a Weinstein type of guy, controlling all these women? You don't think there was some type of writers in the room who was too influenced by that situation, where it kind of feels a little like uh it's just like it's too much overlap going on, and they're propping on certain, not saying like there's like certain characters that didn't work in all new all different, because I like Kamala Khan, I like Robert Reyes Ghost Rider, he came out of the all new all different, but too much of that was just like putting aside or killing off or weakening or just downplaying the old guard to try to prop up the new people. You see, I brought up Miles Morales as a good example because of the fact that they didn't have to put down Peter Parker. Even during the Ultimate Universe, we have a good long time with that version of Peter Parker. So when Miles Morales came along, it didn't feel, of course, there's still some issues with certain people who wasn't like, vibing all that well with a black Puerto Rican Spider-Man. But by and large, he was accepted because the writing and the character proved himself as to why he has earned the mantle. So much so that he became such a beloved character, they have to be forced to bring him into the main Marvel universe, right along with the Black Nick Fury. Even then, it was kind of like a jumble mess because he still every once in a while bring up the white Nick Fury as like his dad or whatever. But Miles was slowly but surely, eased into the role of his own Spider-Man. When at this point, he's not like, needing that all that much mentorship by Peter Parker anymore, where he could just go out on his own and do his own thing. Sure, he can get advice from Peter every once in a while, but he isn't that snot-nosed kid anymore that is green to the world of superheroes, where he's falling for pitfalls that most veteran superheroes wouldn't fall for anymore. Like he is his own character. Ruby Williams, I argue, would have benefited greatly. I mean, it happens every once in a while now, but I think she would have benefited greatly if they didn't just kill off Tony Stark and have her, since she technically stole his tech to build her own Iron Man suit because she did admire the guy, but we saw her in Wakanda Forever, and she did not work there for a lot of people. You bring in a character who's pretty much in the Iron Man supporting cast, Iron Man ethos, and you're shoehorning her into like a Black Panther thing. Why? Because she's black? No. Her, Rhodey, Pepper Potts, they're part of the Iron Man family, for lack of a better word. And God forbid because if you remember Wakanda Forever, there's a lot of female-led characters in this stuff. Not like a bad thing, but they could not have her. At least could have used some kind of flashback during the snap. I'm not calling it a blip. During the snap, she in Chicago met Tony Stark because of some internship or something like that, and him teaching her a thing or two about how to improve her tech a little bit, even though she's smart in her own right. She learned a little thing or two from him because he's done it longer, and she admired the guy. There's nothing wrong with that, but the way like Hollywood is from the past handful of years, whereas like God forbid any young person, especially a young female, learn from a man, let alone a white man, it wouldn't be a good look. And it's like, but that is the character. she would have, that character would have benefited greatly in the comics if she would have spent a few years learning and partnering up with Iron Man and fighting battles with him, side by side. So eventually, when she starts getting her own little comic book runs, it will feel natural and give her. She hasn't even got her own villains, and that shows. Matter of fact, I think Kamala Khan might have her own few little villains, but nobody of any note or merit or memorable. It shows how half-assed it is, because even Miles Morales has that same problem. None of these new guard of superheroes have their own villains that we can at least remember. I'm pretty sure there is a few, but who is Riri Williams' Mandarin? Who's her Whiplash? Not like a carbon copy, but who is her own personal villains? Who's Miss Marvel's own personal villain? There isn't, something to do with Inhuman mess or Carol Danvers mess. Which, another character, Miss Marvel should have benefited greatly. Because I did like a comic book review of Kamala Khan's Origins, which is up on my YouTube channel. During that entire run, she didn't, sure, is pretty much her own thing, but there should have been a chunk of an arc where she's teaming up with Carol Danvers, fighting bad guys, and learning the ropes from her, because that's her idol. Similar how Miles Morales looks up to Peter, similar how Riri Williams looks up to Tony Stark, similar how Sam Wilson looks up to Steve Rogers. They all had, Sam Wilson and Miles Morales teamed up with their respective mentor / friends and fought, villains together. But so there's a little leeway with them, but then, Ghost Rider, Robert Reyes, teaming up with Johnny Blaze, it's like they would have been benefit greatly to learning the ropes. That way we can see them on these adventures. So, seeing these mentors train these new, fresh heroes for the new generation, so they can know they can do their own thing, but they could easily benefit. Like Spider-Man can teach Miles, hey, stay away from symbiotes, stay away from any deals with devils or anything like that. You gotta avoid those kind of things. Riri Williams could benefit greatly is, with Tony Stark. It's like, I wouldn't advise you to drink and fly, because that leads to problems. Listen to Rhodey, because usually he's, right on the money, and he always set me straight every once in a while when I needed a kick in the butt. Have that, rapport, and have those young kids listen, and don't get all snotty about I know better than you, old man attitude. None of that mess, because bringing it all back, that era of comics would have benefited greatly if you gradually if you had comic writers who actually want to tell stories regarding these characters, ease them into it by partnering them up with the people they're pretty much taking up the mantle of, or walking in the footsteps of. So you have great stories with them. So that way, when the movies and the TV shows started talking about them, we actually have some solid stories to mine. So that way, is at the very least properly adapted and have a focused story to follow. It was all a setup just to, bring these characters in, but they brought them in with no substance. And the movies and the TV shows have suffered for that. And as pretty much all I bring up, because I think you might disagree with me. I don't have any concrete evidence that they did it, but it's too strong or too palpable in the air that there is some level of influence that Kevin Feige or somebody in his orbit has contacted, the comics to like, hey, we're going to accept this little person because and we need you to make a story about Sam Wilson's new Falcon sidekick. So in 2 years down the line, we got a TV show about him. So we need you to do a Falcon story about Torres. Don't care what it's about. Just put something out there. Have it talk about the troubles and trials and tribulations of being a Hispanic person in America and their problems dealing with deportation and all this other stuff. Talk about that stuff because that's what we're going to be bringing up there, kind of things. Because trust and believe that will be the mindset until after the whole DEI rollback. And I think that will change. I'm just telling you how the part would have gone if that wasn't rolled back. But there need to be like a separation from the influence of the MCU from what's going on with the comics. Let the comics do their own thing. And if the movies and TV shows of the Marvel Studios feels inclined to adapt a Riri Williams story and have something of note to talk about, there can easily be an arc. And this is coming from a black person. I'm getting kind of tired with the whole black struggle kind of stuff. Black Panther did his thing with it, and it was handled well. But I want to tell like a cool superhero story with Riri Williams without having to go through some kind of rhetoric about black struggles or being a black female in this space that's male dominated and paying less than to our male counterparts. It's tired. I'm sorry, it's tired. I want just cool superhero stories or beating up Iron Man villains or something. Or giving her own villain to beat up with like their own suit of armor and her dealing with that. And her to be her own Iron Man instead of trying to copy Tony. Be your own. It's similar to the lesson that Peter Parker in the MCU had to learn in Far From Home. It's like, you're not Tony. Stop trying to be Tony. Be your own person. Nobody can measure up to Tony. Similar, like Riri Williams got to learn that, would have been cool to have that lesson in her own thing because her TV show is still coming out. It's like, it'd been great if she would have had some time with Tony and admire the guy, because there's nothing wrong with a young female learning from a male mentor who she admires and try to be him, because let her look up to the guy. But like I said, there's a lot in that era where they kind of downplay the old guard to prop up the new people, and it should be more of like a symbiosis. Nobody should, be downplayed to prop up others. That's not how it works, and that shouldn't how it works. Like, I don't want to try to enjoy Jane Foster's Thor at the expense of Thor Odinson, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it was all set up, man. If you follow the breadcrumbs back to it, you can see like they definitely just forced that back, nearly 10 years ago, and they try to be slick with it. But now, because they half-assed it in the writing of those comics, now when they try to adapt it years later, it's all just as garbage. And it's not the actors' fault. I'm not blaming the actors for the incompetence of the bigwigs behind the scenes. Because they, let the culture influence them way too much. It's like, oh, the culture's going this way and DEI is the thing. Oh, that's where the money is? Let's lean into that instead of acknowledging what the comic book audience really wants. Anyway, Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. I'm off base here. You can respectfully say in the comments below, but I will see you guys later on. So take care, and I'll see you all soon. Peace.